Welcome back, Guardians. In the last report, we covered the first 3 books of the Hive Origin Saga, the Books of Sorrow. In those reports, we began to better understand the nature of the Hive, why they fight with such tenacious resolve. Their character was born from their home planet of Fundament, where everything was designed to snuff out life, crush it at its beginning, forever shaping the Hive's current viewpoint of the ever-expanding universe. But to continue the story of the 3 sisters, we start at the beginning of their exile after the betrayal of the Osmium court mother, Tauix, and the loss of their ancestral home. Prepare yourselves, Guardians. The story of these 3 sisters and the numerous sacrifices they make may have this report sounding sympathetic rather than xenophobic, but make no mistake, these Hive do not deserve our thoughts, only our attention. The de facto leader of the 3 sisters, the navigator Arash, the Dubi Oryx Guardians would face over the rings of Saturn, had believed that reclaiming the throne was only secondary to their species' survival. She said, "But this is my deepest fear. The timid truth says that we are the smallest, most fragile things alive, the natural prey of the universe. Tauix would have us believe that our ancestors came to the Fundament to hide from the hungry void. Arash came to fear what her father, the Osmium King, knew was coming, an end to everything. A Zizigi, or union of celestial bodies. Perhaps, due to the nature of Fundament and how the world's continents operated, sheer gravitational force, when multiplied, had a civilization-killing effect in the form of a massive wave, capable of destroying all, or at least a majority, of Fundament's continents. Arash recorded her father's grim messages and inscribed them into the Book 4, stating, "Imagine the 52 moons of Fundament lining up the sky. It wouldn't take all 52, of course, just a few massive moons, but this is my deepest fear. Imagine their gravity pulling on the Fundament sea, lifting it into a swollen bulge. If this God wave, as it is described, was to manifest, surely the court politics and the betrayal of Tauix paled in comparison to the end of all of Fundament's species. Perhaps it was prophecy, or perhaps it was something more sinister. Individuals motivated by dark, ruinous powers that only sought their freedom from incarceration, and weaving a grand tale of death while whispering it into the ears of those listening was their only outlet. As the sisters made their escape on a ship provided by Arash, the sister Sathona became further entangled in her father's dead worm, the white familiar of whispers and prophecy. At this time, the 3 sisters had been adrift at sea and in cause, moving from continent to continent, plundering ancient wrecks and braving impassable sea storms. Their courage, or blind luck, certainly steered them in a direction that the worm of Sathona desired. Imagine, if you will, placing all your hope into a dead thing that only whispered to your companion, yet to take their word and give up your will in some unseen hope for a better future. But that better future was in a ship, an ancient thing of old ancestors from a time when the crew were spaceworthy and not bound to Fundament's will. Sathona spoke in Book 5. Arash wants to open the ship and see if we can take command of it. I know this is the right thing to do. I know because I asked the worm. Placing all the hopes of not only your chance at redemption and retrieving your father's throne, but the livelihood of all of your species into the hand of a dead worm. Better fit to be a relic buried away in a library than appealed to as a savior. Once again, the worm gods of the Hive share a close resemblance to the records we have of the Ahamkara hunts. Sathona states, "It was my father's familiar. I ripped it from him as we fled. It is a dead white thing, segmented, washed up from the deep sea. It's dead, but it still speaks to me. It says, 'Listen closely, O vengeance mine.'" As we continue to progress through the Books of Sorrow, it becomes clearer, as if a window has been polished to allow perfect clarity, that the events of seemingly random good fortune are no more than a complex event set in motion by these beings, these things of ancient, awful power. The needle. What was it really? A sign of divine intervention or sublime luck? Regardless, the information we have about this needle craft is limited to the reports and transcriptions in the Books of Sorrow, but it can be deduced that the ship was most likely a spacecraft pulled into Fundament's orbit by the Krill, or a species native to Fundament's ancestors. Perhaps it was a research vessel. Perhaps they too were called by the deep, pulled by its dark lure, plunging deeper into the seas that locked away these whispering gods of promise. The sisters, now 2 years into their journey on the Needle, understood that their quest of vengeance and recapture was quickly fading into impossibility. They were tormented by the loss of their royal home, of their father, and of the betrayal at the hands of Tawix. We three will die here, in exile. Tawix will outlive us. And Arash, brilliant-eyed Arash, you will die of old age long before you have proof of your god wave or any way to stop it. For a moment, imagine if you were Zero, your thirst for vengeance and warfare subdued by your inability to raise forces. Or, if you were Sethona, you would not be able to become a mother, supplemented by that life-sustaining jelly. If you were Arash, your inexorable need to consume knowledge and find understanding in the nature of things crushed, because time would claim you before you had your fill. Despair. Despair is a motivator opposite of hope, but sometimes even more effective. When pushed to your limits with your back against a wall, despair is the only emotion that gives new ideas, new meaning. We have to dive, Arash said. That's what this ship is built to do. Dive into Fundament, the world below us, towards the core. With all other options exhausted, all other hopes removed, the one thing they resolved themselves upon was the faint call of promise from a dead thing that washed ashore and coveted by a mad king. To place your future into such mysticism, surely despair is your only motivator. But what the three sisters would meet in the deep dark of Fundament's massive waves was a war between gods, between unseen forces that saw the species of Fundament as nothing more than mere pawns, regardless of their overt intentions. It seemed that their decision to dive into the cold ocean of Fundament had, at least in hindsight, been a wise proposition. As above them, they heard the collision of continents. They heard the patter and crash of helium neon rain. They heard the struggles of monsters. And they heard the distant groan of the ocean rising, tugged by distant moons. The Syzygy is real, Sethona hissed. It's already begun. As they progressed ever deeper into the unknown abyss, they arrived upon an impossibly massive creature, appropriately called the Leviathan. This being, or whatever it was described as being larger than some of Fundament's continents, a monster so indescribably massive, protecting or guarding something hidden. Its voice echoed through the now vulnerable Needle ship, saying, "You must turn back. Save yourselves from the deep. Save the world from yourselves. You must turn back." But what was this Leviathan protecting? Why guard something that could provide salvation for all of Fundament, especially the plight of Arash and her sisters, of those still victimized in the Osmium court? In time, these questions will become answered as we continue to discover the true secrets these books have to offer. But I turn the question to you now. If you had no other option to save your people, if a world-ending prophecy came true, would the warnings of a being that towered over you, made you insignificant in proportion, stop you? Many, I assume, would answer no. As long as there is life in your lungs, you fight, you crawl, you will claw your way to sanctuary, regardless of the obstacle. So perhaps, for a moment, we can sympathize with the difficulties engulfing these three sisters, or if anything, we can choose to learn from their mistakes. As we continue to explore the Books of Sorrow together, I ask again, would there be any price too grave to pay for the safety of your people, Guardians? Hey everyone, Wally here. If you'd like to support the channel further, please feel free to check out the script link, my Patreon, and the new apparel in the Spreadshirt shop, all linked down below. If you want to join the conversation on our Discord server, we allow everyone in. Like the video if you enjoyed the content, and subscribe for more.